Okay, rewind the clock back to November 10th, 2019. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order released, and I, having nothing else to play and being mildly interested, picked up the game. It didn't take long for me to get sucked in, both by the original narrative as well as the smooth gameplay, all of which I went over in my breakdown of that game, which you are welcome to check out. That game was an unexpected 9 out of 10 in my book and left me wanting more. Although Fallen Order wasn't going to get DLC, I knew there would be a sequel, and my only wish, much like any other fan of that game, was that the sequel would be even better than the first. Well, I'm here to say, aside from some very minor graphical glitches, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is the perfect sequel. Before we break it down, let's take a quick look at the game's developer, Respawn Entertainment. Founded in 2010 by Jason West and Vince Zampella, Respawn Entertainment is an American game development studio. Prior to the founding of Respawn, Jason and Vince were leads at Infinity Ward, the subsidiary to Activision and the well-known developer behind many of the Call of Duty games. After Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare's release in 2007, Jason and Vince tried to use the game's success to renegotiate their contracts with Activision, essentially asking for larger bonuses and creative control of the series. Activision agreed to their demands on the condition that control would return to Activision should the two be fired. To the surprise of no one, Activision actively sought out ways to get the two fired. On the other hand, Jason and Vince were looking for ways to make Infinity Ward an independent studio. In March 2010, the duo was fired, followed swiftly by a whirlwind of accusations and lawsuits between them and Activision. About a month after getting the boot from Activision, Jason and Vince founded an independent studio, Respawn Entertainment, using funding from the EA Partners program, assuring that they retained the rights to all intellectual property made by them in the future. By July 2010, 38 of Infinity Ward's 46 employees who resigned following Jason and Vince's departure signed on with Respawn Entertainment, and they've had some solid W's ever since. The Titanfall games, Apex Legends, and the Star Wars Jedi games, to name a few. The first thing I noticed in Jedi Survivor is Cal's growth. They don't explicitly state how much time has passed between the first and second games. If they did, I missed it. But I'm guessing no more than 2 or 3 years. Jedi are still being hunted down all across the galaxy, and Cal hasn't stopped taking the fight to the Empire. Every battle he's been in, every new scar he's gained, every life he has saved, and every new lesson he's learned are all present when he's dealing with most situations. And it's nice to see such attention to character detail. At some point over the years, the original crew of the Mantis had gone their separate ways, leaving Cal and BD-1 to get into trouble on their own, eventually taking on a new crew and ending up where we see them in the game's prologue. But not to worry, you get to see the old crew again over the course of the game. Most important of all, BD-1 is still the absolute best companion in any game ever, and this is a hill I will gladly die on. Anytime you come across them in your travels, NPCs are generally worth talking to, as they can provide you with rumors, which are basically side quests, and these can result in you finding new cosmetics, mini-bosses to kill, or new people to bring back to Pyloon's Saloon. Pyloon's Saloon is Grease's bar, which you make it to shortly after you touch down on Koboh. It's not too great when you first get there, but you can recruit all manner of people that you find during your travels. A fisherman to take care of the aquarium on the second floor, a droid DJ that acts as a jukebox, some weirdos that keep trying to get you to play this board game that I never once played, and even a garden on the roof that you can find seeds for. Think of the saloon as a main hub, separate from the Mantis. Not to mention, Koboh has the largest explorable area out of any of the other planets you can visit, so you'll be spending a lot of time there. You might as well get to know the locals. The different planets you get to explore are still as fun to traverse as they were previously, mainly because of how smooth the platforming and climbing is. Different gadgets you get over the course of the game, combined with new force abilities and BD-1 upgrades, allow you to reach every nook and cranny of every explorable area, finding useful collectibles, new bits of information to add to your databank, and new cosmetic items for Cal and BD-1. The regions are a bit bigger this time around and may require some outside assistance from the local wildlife in order to get around more efficiently. The majority of the 33 hours I've sunk into this game have been spent searching for cosmetics, because drip is everything. Cal can find new hairstyles, facial hairstyles, weapon components, and clothing styles or color materials. Clothing outfit sets consist of a jacket, shirt, and pants. Finding a clothing item will allow you to wear it with one default color setting. Once you find the color materials for that specific clothing item, you will be able to pick from 6 different colors for that clothing item. Meaning, you've got to find 3 outfit parts plus the color materials for each part in order to have the complete set. This led me to search every available spot for possible chests to loot in search of the specific outfit I was trying to complete. Eventually, I broke down and just googled the location of what I needed so I can move on. In rare cases, you will find special chests that contain a full set of weapon components or clothing and color materials. Back on the subject of exploration, the path forward is usually straightforward enough. It will look like you have multiple ways that you can go, but early on, you'll notice many paths require some gadget you don't have yet. If you use the handy dandy map provided by BD1, you'll see which paths are blocked, marked with the obstacle highlighted red, and paths you can take, with obstacles marked green, as well as any climbable surfaces you can use to progress, in case the way forward isn't immediately obvious. Also marked on the map are meditation sites. Meditation sites are where Cal can rest and take a number of actions. You can rest, which will replenish Cal's health bar and healing stims, but this will cause all enemies to respawn. You can undergo training exercises in case any of the combat mechanics are giving you a hard time. You can fast travel between any other meditation sites you have found that are on the current planet, and you can spend any available skill points to unlock additional lightsaber techniques, increase Cal's maximum health, or improve his efficiency with the Force. Next, you can swap between your currently equipped lightsaber stances, which affect what moves Cal can use during combat, and lastly, swap out perks. Perks are small upgrades you can slot in to give Cal a little extra boost in combat with things like an increase to the block meter or gradual health regeneration. Now, if you've been on the internet since the game came out, you've probably come across clips showing one or both of the 2 new lightsaber stances that Cal can learn in Jedi Survivor, so I won't consider it a spoiler to tell you about them all. Cal starts out with the standard one-handed stance, which is the tried and tested OG method of fighting. Over the course of the first hour or 2 of the game, you will unlock the 2 stances learned in the previous game, double-bladed and dual-wield. Dual-wielding sabers are meant to deliver a rapid flurry of attacks to a single target, whereas the double-bladed saber is best for a horde of enemies, constantly whirring the saber around in a circular pattern to hit enemies on all sides. Not to mention, it's the single best stance for deflecting a serious onslaught of blaster fire. About midway through the game, you'll be given a blaster of your own, which unlocks the blaster stance, utilizing a longer lightsaber blade in one hand and a blaster in the other, allowing Cal to dominate both up close and at range, or alternate attacking between the 2 weapons to overwhelm enemies. A little further into the game, and you'll unlock the 5th and final stance, Crossguard. This stance is for slow, heavy attacks that can shatter enemy guard in only a few swings. Perhaps as important as meditation sites, we have workbenches. Once you find a new lightsaber part, blaster part, BD1 part, or color material for any of the above, you'll have to visit a workbench in order to equip the color or components. Components and color materials for BD1 or any of your weapons can be found in chests or bought from a corresponding vendor using special collectibles. At some point along the line, you'll find an upgrade for BD1 that marks all unopened chests on your map, allowing you to easily go back and find every non-vendor cosmetic if you really want to. As far as Cal's hairstyles and clothing, those could be modified at any time via the start menu. Getting Cal and BD1 draped up and dripped out is one part of the game, and the other part is, of course, surviving. There are a whole host of different enemies that want Cal to stop breathing. Fortunately, Cal has a whole host of different ways to keep that from happening. Your equipped lightsaber stances and unlock skills for those stances will be your main method of dispatching enemies. As I mentioned earlier, each stance has its pros and cons, but whichever 2 you choose to use should fare decently enough if you use your head. For instance, if you've got some Gatling gunners to deal with, but you don't have your double-sided stance on, you could just chill behind cover until they stop firing, and then either close the distance to carve them up, or force pull the gunner to you to kill them outright. The Force can also be used to throw objects at enemies, deflect grenades or rockets back at enemies, or blow enemies right off ledges, letting gravity handle the rest.
I'll get you!
Just be careful. The tougher the enemy, the more resistant to the Force they will be. Speaking of, Cal can also use Force Confusion to make an enemy fight alongside him for a short time. The strength of the enemy depending on how many of the relevant skills you've unlocked for Force Confusion. I myself focused on the blaster stance and the double-bladed stance. The double-bladed stance I used for hordes, sustaining heavy blaster fire or to overwhelm enemies with the speed of its attacks, and the blaster stance I used to pick off the lesser enemies right when the fight starts so I have less to worry about. The blaster stance is also a good dueling stance, since whatever boss or bounty target you're fighting may not have a reliable method of deflecting both blaster shots and lightsaber attacks, Even if they do, just break their block gauge. The colored bar above them is their HP, but the one below that is the block gauge. Doing enough damage or guarding with your lightsaber to deflect their attacks will drain the enemy block gauge, and once it runs out, they'll be wide open to attacks for a brief period of time. Of course, Cal also has a block gauge, so you can't guard against attacks indefinitely. Oh, you also have an ultimate ability which slows down time for all enemies in the vicinity for a short duration, allowing Cal to get in some free hits or kills without fear of immediate retaliation from other enemies. I use it as a panic button if my HP is getting very low and I can't have a moment's peace to use a healing stim because enemies are beating the shit out of me. At first, the ability will wear off for any enemy you land a single hit on, but this can be increased to multiple hits via the appropriate skills on the skill tree. Killing enemies grants you XP, which will reward you with skill points at certain thresholds. There are other ways to get skill points like force tear challenges or force spots, but killing enemies, bosses, and special targets are the most reliable methods. If you happen to get bested by an enemy, you'll respawn at the last meditation site you rested at, and you will lose much of your gained XP. Always stop to use any meditation sites even if you don't need to use the rest feature, as simply activating one will update your respawn point. Killing the enemy that killed you or going back to the spot where you died will get your lost XP back. A new feature that wasn't in the previous game is the ability to fight alongside companions. It doesn't work like Fallout or Skyrim where you can just bring a companion around for the entire game, but it's still fun. Whenever the story calls for it, Cal will get assistance from an ally during combat or while exploring the current planet. Companions have an ability that they can use during combat to lock down enemies or distract them while Cal picks them off, and companions can also open up new climbing spots or grapple points for Cal to utilize during platforming sections. Another cool feature is how the companion will take part in enemy takedowns along with Cal. Jedi Survivor has many difficulty settings, but I played through on the middle one, which is basically normal. Having a basic understanding of the mechanics is more than enough to get you through most combat encounters, unless the boss is just pure bullshit like this froggy fucker. Once you finish your first playthrough, you'll be able to access New Game Plus, which grants you special perks that will fundamentally change how some aspects of the game work, new lightsaber colors to use in customization, and all your skills and cosmetics will carry over. As I said earlier, I've only put in a bit over 30 hours, and once I find the rest of the cosmetics that I want in my initial playthrough, I can easily see myself dropping another 20 hours in New Game Plus. I've heard that there have been a number of bugs and glitches across both console and PC versions of the game. I've been playing on PC and all I noticed is some textures took a bit long to fully render sometimes, but I never encountered any issues that messed with my game progress. Our resident Drake Darksider has been playing on PS5 and according to him, he only had some slight frame rate issues and those only occurred in areas with a lot of water. Glitches or not, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is, without a doubt, a monumental improvement on the first game in pretty much every capacity. At no point was I bored with the story or the gameplay. Everything from simple platforming to epic boss fights were so goddamn enjoyable that I'd be crazy not to play through a second time. I would have gone into more detail over the course of the video, but I was doing my best to avoid as many spoilers as I possibly could. What I will say is that the ending of the game is emotionally heavy, but nonetheless spectacular. If you want to know what that means, you'll have to play and find out. Jedi Survivor is available now on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC for the steep price of $70. I would say I got my money's worth, but if you want to wait for a sale, nobody would blame you. Fortunately, if you have yet to play the previous game, Jedi Fallen Order is only $40 and it's on Game Pass, so you should definitely check that out. That about does it for today's breakdown. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. This has been Cygnus Jason, and may the Force be with you.